we're coming into the new moon on the 3rd of June on Monday. So we're kind of coming into that, well, we actually are coming into that beautiful dark moon time now. So you may have even noticed that you're wanting to spend a little bit more time, a little bit more quiet time, a little bit more inward time. And, we just spoke about the busyness out there. It's really interesting, the energy that's really coming and really building with this particular moon coming in is really having us really reflect and start to actually receive a deeper listening within ourselves. So this new moon is a Gemini new moon, and Gemini, is there any Geminis in the room? No? Geminis are communicative, they're just amazing, creative, they've got that really creative energy. They've got a very mental energy as well. So their minds tend to be very active, they get bored easy, and they're, flitting, from one thing to another. So the energy of this particular new moon is bringing that with it. So we have that phonetic mind, that mind that's constant, the stress, thinking about things, actually thinking about many things at one time. So you're flitting from subject to subject in the mind. So you may find that your internal chatter may actually start to increase. So it's really interesting, isn't it? It's like whatever it is that we're clearing in our lives is always coming to the surface. We're always supported by the cycles of the moon, the cycles of our earth. And while it may not seem like it's supporting you in certain areas of your life, as you're dealing with challenges and moving through your own personal shadows, that's exactly how these cycles are supporting you. I'm feeling very, I just feel a lot of joy around this new moon coming, and it's in that real deep connection of the truth. And that's what's really being asked. You're being asked to be discerning. Listen to what you're hearing. Feel if it's right for you or not. It's so easy to get caught up in what's out there in the world, where you may be looking for a certain direction to go in life, but your heart always knows. So bridging that gap between the mind and the heart is really important. And the energy of this particular moon is supporting bridging that gap. We're being asked at this moment in time with evolution to really work with our own spiritual connection, your connection to what you call God, Goddess, Universe, Source, what you call the one energy. And regular connection is going to help you navigate with the discernment through those shadow aspects that are reflecting for ourselves as humanity at this time. The earth has shifted. Her magnetic poles, there's a strength in them. There is more light that's here on the planet at this time. So with that, we have more of an access. It's like the channels are clearer than ever before. But because we're so caught up in our own mental programs and our own mental chatter and what we are healing within our own DNA, within our own bloodlines, within our own DNA, sometimes we can forget, we get caught up in this mind area. And we're really being called at this moment in time, and in particular with this new moon cycle, to really connect deeply to that love within your heart and deeply to those passions and what it is that you truly desire. And we have an opportunity and the energy supporting that to actually plant those seeds, which will continue to sprout and nurture over the next 6 months of this year. So there's a lot happening on both sides and a lot of energy around this particular Gemini moon. So with all of that, your reactions will be heightened. So being aware, with your reactions to things. Because when we see those parts of ourselves that we no longer want to entertain, there's usually a pushing away or a projection that happens to that part of ourselves out into the world in some way. And if we can catch that in just a moment, take that breath and just ask ourselves, what is it? What is it that this situation's showing me? What is this situation showing me about myself? Because life is continually showing us parts of us we've integrated, parts of us that we haven't integrated, parts of us we like, parts of us we don't like. And we have so many opinions, don't we, about this or that, the way things are. And at this point in time in our evolution of humanity, it's time to stop listening to those opinions that we have within our heads, within our minds, within our everyday, and start listening to that communication deeply happening within your heart. And it takes mindfulness to do that, and regular practice to do that. What is it in your patterning that's showing up for you now to be healed? What is it that's really stopping? Because we've got those two parts. It's like the Gemini energy is the twin energy. So we've got the part that has these desires and this creativity and the creative mind really connecting to the source, to the divinity in you. And then we have those programs and those parts of us that tell us either why it can't happen or why you're not enough for it to happen, or whatever story you've actually got around not living your truth in each moment. We're conditioned to please others. How is that working for you? It's time to actually, what it is that you give others, that compassion, that love, that care that you give others. It's time to actually really bring that home within yourself and start to practice this switching from that mind, from the opinions and judgments we have about this or that, or how things can't happen, to trust and faith that your heart knows the way. Even when your mind doesn't understand. Because we are really moving out there in the world in an unknown place now. We are really paving the way of the new earth. And we can only do that while we are connected to God, Goddess, Source, Universe, whatever you call that one energy. That is the only way that things will change. And unless we have a really loving relationship with ourselves, and we can be really truly honest with ourselves, can we serve that? Because that love actually comes from that connection to Source. It's who you are. You are that light. You are that love. You are the way forward. But if you're ignoring yourself, your sacred self, how are you going to find your way? How are you going to find your way in the dark? And what I see as the dark is being caught up in this conditioned mind. Your navigation, your discernment is being required now more than any other time. Because you'll be tested. And we're tested with those people that we love the most. People we care about, because they're the ones that have come in to show us the way back home to ourselves. Everybody we connect with in this world is showing us our way home. And home is here. It's in the heart. It's inside. It's in that connection. You are so much more than what the mind has been telling you. And what the mind has been telling you about others. You're so much more than that. So as you're finding your way, your navigation is going to happen through your connection to your God self. That is the only way you're going to know which way to go. So this is what I talk about in regard to the deep listening. And what this energy, this communication energy, because it's all about communicating. So we're communicating with others about what it is our heart's desire. We are communicating our vulnerabilities. We're starting to be more honest with ourselves first, and then with others. And that opens the doorway for love, for loving relationships. It opens the doorway for healing. It opens the doorway for joy. And also a peace in the disruption of our lives. If you have a look, if you reflect on where your mind's been today, just today, even just in the last hour, and all those things that have crossed your mind in the last hour, or the last half a day, or the last day. So many things, aren't there? And we're creating at a quicker rate than ever before. So as we become more mindful, we're able to go, oh, hang on a minute, that's not true, because you don't want to keep manifesting the same thing, do you? If you're not liking it, if you're liking it, keep going. Keep going on those things you love creating. But those other things, those other parts of you that you're like, well, I don't know whether I really want that. Do you know what I mean? It's time for that part to receive that love and make those choices. You know, think about your values, about respect, about honesty, about love, kindness, compassion, fun, joy, whatever your values are. And revisit them. And revisit them in connection to your loving self, to your God self. And that'll give you strength. It'll give you strength to be able to speak and put into place what it is you need to do for yourself to live a life in more freedom. And to live a life in more love. The freedom happens inside of the heart. And have a think about whenever you've gone through a challenging time, a time of grief, a time of loss, like in the surrender, in the letting go of the grief, in letting go of the loss, in letting go of what it is that holds your heart captive, there's this freedom, like in the surrender. Be okay with not knowing what to do. Be okay with not knowing which way to go. And leave it up to the heart in the moment. Your heart will always know. The most challenging decisions I've ever had to make in life didn't come without fear. For me, anyway. Usually it came with a lot of fear. And the only thing I had to hold on to was my knowing in my heart, in my connection to my God self. And with all of that fear, I would just have to come back and I would sit and I would breathe. I would breathe into my belly, connect again to the earth. I'd breathe back in again to my heart. And I'd check in. And in that moment is where the fear transforms to an energy of peace and an energy of knowing, even when you don't know the outcome. All you need to know is what feels true for you within your heart. What feels loving for you within your heart. What feels safe within your heart. And don't be afraid to stand by it. Don't be afraid to allow that vulnerability to speak. That is what it looks like to stand by your heart. We have to speak, we have to put things into action. We have to stand by our hearts. We have to stand for our hearts. We have to move in the direction our hearts are taking us and leading us. This has always been the way forward, back to ourselves, back to that place of love, back to walking the path of living love. That's what it looks like. In the face of fear, in the face of everything in your world telling you the opposite. That's what it looks like to wake up. All of a sudden, you start seeing the world differently, your world differently, the world you created differently. Because the eyes are open. And that's what we have so much to be grateful for. At this time in our lives, with all the chaos and with all the darkness, We have so much gratitude for the light clearing the way. You're being called. Your soul is calling you. Your God self is calling you home. They're saying, come back. Come back to love. Choose me.